Welcome to BFCN Shorts, a new short form format where coaches from around the world tell us about working in different locations. Our first guest is based in Colombia, Gary Philpott.
Arriba, arriba.
Gary, thanks for joining us. Where are you?
Right now I'm in Palomino, La Guajira in Colombia.
Colombia, fantastic. So, who is it that you work for out there?
Well, at the moment it's just there's no real club, or it's kind of myself voluntary. So I moved here about 2 months ago, and it's just voluntary work, working with kids, goalkeepers, everything, 7 days a week. So no official organization. It's myself that I'm setting up, but obviously the hopes are to create my own kind of little academy here with funding and everything to get kind of the resources that they need here, essentially.
Oh, wonderful. So, what appealed to you about going to Colombia?
So my wife is Colombian. So we met in New York. We were living in New York. And it was more so I've got 2 kids myself. It was more so to give the kids a bit of a life experience. And obviously myself as well, kind of, learning the culture, adapting to everything, kind of just the life experiences, really.
Can you tell us what the infrastructure is like for football in Colombia?
Yeah, where I am in Palomino, right? It's a small little town or village, kind of next to the beach, right? So I'm literally living half a mile from the beach. So the nearest kind of big city is 2.5 hours on a bus ride away, right? So the bigger cities, obviously, there's kind of a bit more infrastructure. But where I am, I'd say there's pretty much little to no infrastructure. You know what I mean? It's just kids playing on the street, I think, kind of like probably how, I don't know how old you are, how you and I grew up, right? Just you finish school, you ball, you're on the street with your mates, you're playing. That's kind of the extent of it in terms of where I am. No real funding, no real pitches, resources. So it's just kids kicking a ball around on the street, no shoes, no nothing, playing in their feet. So in terms of infrastructure, I'd say basically not much at all.
Now, how close did you say you were to the beach?
I nearly chose the one. I'd say about half a mile there.
Oh, very, very nice. Now, going over there, how has it benefited you as a coach?
So obviously the repetitions, obviously, as a coach, right? So I'm coaching 7 days a week, and it's grown incredibly. Like my first day here, I was like training 2 goalkeepers, and within 2 weeks, I now was counting before us, like 56 kids. So for me, it's obviously the repetition, right, of planning, organizing, learning, especially as well with different cultures, right, adapting, my coaching styles. But I'd say more importantly, it's obviously my love for the game is huge, right, my passion, but kind of it's taking it even higher. Just kind of seeing these kids, how much they love the game. It's like they know nothing else. So it's kind of bringing me back to my childhood of how I learned football, and it's all I knew, you know what I mean, growing up. So for me, it's made me remember why I love the game, why I got into it, and why I'm doing it, you know what I mean? So it's just, if I thought I loved football before this, it's taking it to like new levels unbelievably. So I mean, just learning and loving the game more and more every day,
And how's moving to Colombia benefited you as a person?
Again, kind of, touching on it, kind of when you mentioned the infrastructure, right, and kind of, it's almost like I'm in a time machine, right? So everybody here, without being too, speaking badly about the place, because the place is unbelievable, it's incredible. It's a very, humble upbringing here. It's very poor. People don't have much. So for me, coming here and seeing all that, it's benefited me, kind of seeing the perspective of people who don't have much. you know, and kind of learning. So again, coming from New York, right? So I grew up in Cork City, Ireland, didn't really have much. Moving to New York, and then kind of coming back to this, it's kind of benefited me as, you know, it's reminded me of, you know, all these, you know, material things don't really mean shit. You know what I mean? It's passion, love for the game, the real things, you know, just the little things, you know, the community here, you know, it's like, especially in New York, you know, a lot of immigrants, people are there to try and be successful and make it. So, you know, a bit of a rat race, kind of a bit of greed, you know. So it's kind of brought me back to ground level, you know what I mean, and kind of remembering who I am, where I'm from, and kind of why I'm doing everything I'm doing.
What would you say are some of the best things about living and working there?
Oh man, it's just kind of just the obviously the people, you know what I mean, like just the passion, you know what I mean. And again, I mentioned community. Obviously similar to England, Ireland, you kind of grow up in these small communities, neighborhoods, obviously with everything, you know, the internet, phones, things are a bit different. Kids aren't really, you know, playing on the street much anymore, and this and that. So for me, it's like coming back to that and the people. And, you know, football, like literally everyone here is football crazy. You know what I mean? So just here, the people, like I'm here 2 months, right? And literally the first day, because I played football, everyone welcomed me in. You know, everyone wanted to talk to me. Everyone wanted to like, oh, you know, come to my house, we'll have dinner, it's like just, it's true. You know what I mean? There's no bullshit. There's no, like you said earlier, about kind of waffling on and saying things to sound good and blow smoke up people. There's almost none of that. You know what I mean? It's just community. People are real. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, there's probably bad things or, you know, problems here, but it's, you know, the community. It's real. You know, the people are, man, the warmest people I've ever met in my life.
And what have been some challenges you've faced?
Obviously, the language barrier is. You know, my wife is Colombian, speaks Spanish, and I've been kind of learning bits here and there as I've been going. And I'd like to think I'm fluent, but I'm totally not. It's kind of, but you know, obviously when I'm coaching kids, there's no English here whatsoever, so I'm kind of on the fly, adapting to it. I'm coming up with like words that I know. Like for example, I'm goalkeeper coaching here, and I'm telling to move their feet sideways, like shuffling. I didn't know how to say it, but I knew the word crab in Spanish. So I'm just like cangreja, which is, you know, crab. So I'm like, they're laughing at me. I'm saying cangreja to like shift their feet. I'm walking down the street now, and like some of the goalkeepers are shouting cangreja across the street, the word crab, like making fun of me. So definitely the language barrier, which to be honest isn't that much of a challenge. I'd say the biggest challenge really is the resources. You know, for me, when I came here, I was like on the pitch, and I was like, one fella I got in touch with, I was like, oh, where can I buy a bunch of balls, or where can I buy cones? And he was like, oh, the nearest football store is 3 hours away on a bus. So I go there once every 2 weeks to pick up new equipment. So that's a challenge, as well as the kids. Like I said, some don't have shoes. They're training in their feet. I'm training 15, 16 goalkeepers. None of them have gloves. So it's kind of trying to, obviously I've been paying out of pocket myself to kind of kids who are dedicated. I'll go buy them gloves, I'll do this, but I guess long term, if I want to establish something kind of long term, like an academy or whatever, it's more so the funding, the resources, how I build that, instead of me just paying out of pocket every time, you know what I mean? And if I leave, that remains, you know what I mean? Building something, so when I leave, or if I may not leave, but when I leave, there's something built there that continues for the future, you know what I mean? Not just for my own gratification or self stroking my ego in the mirror, you know what I mean? So it's how do I build something that's long term, so the future kids can kind of continue that, you know what I mean?
So what has taken some adjusting to?
For me, you know, obviously, like I said, my wife is Colombian, so I've kind of been immersed in the culture for a bit. But I'd say it's how quickly everything has happened here. Like I said, so my first week here, I was walking down the street and I seen a football pitch and I was just looking at it and they were like, "Oh, do you want to play?" And like I said, I was talking to a goalkeeper, a bit of talent, and I was like, "I'd love to train him," you know. So I asked him to train. Like I said, I had 2 goalkeepers, and then within a week, I had 8 goalkeepers. And they've no phones, right? So I didn't even, they just showed up at the training. They told them the time. So for me, now I have 56 kids. So for me, the adjusting is kind of, sorry, like I'm a big people pleaser. So everyone's like, "Oh, I want to train." So I'm like, "Yeah, you can train," but it's managing the schedule, you know, through age groups, talent levels, you know, so everyone's benefiting. So, you know, if I have a group in different skill levels, it's not, you know, so for me, I'd say it's figuring out my planning schedule, right? You know, my approach to coaching in terms of the different levels of skill, the age groups. Are people here to be, they want to be professional, or just because they want to, it's new, you know, there's a coach here, you know? So for me, I think adjusting to how to make this efficient, you know what I mean? In terms of, am I coaching correctly? Am I, you know, are they liking it? You know, this and that. So I'd say just more kind of the planning side of things is definitely figuring that side of things out.
Let's talk a bit about misconceptions, because people often get the wrong idea. What have been some misconceptions about Colombia, or some maybe stupid questions that you might have had from family or friends before going there?
It's just like, it's funny because obviously, you know, you look at Colombia and the movies and the Pablo Escobar and the drugs, and it's dangerous and this and that. And definitely for me, coming here on my first day, I didn't realize how, again, poor is the wrong word to use, or kind of how humble everything is, the humble upbringing. And my first day here, I was like, this might be a bit dangerous, you know what I mean? Like the misconception of it, I was like, but literally, it's safer than New York. You know what I mean? Like, you know, literally everybody, like the community, you know what I mean? So my first day, again, a bit of a misconception of like, Jesus Christ, am I going to get robbed? You know, I'm the white guy with boots, you know what I mean? Like I was kind of, but literally, like I said, my first day training a kid, I'm in his house, eating dinner with his family, and but definitely my own personal misconception, I guess, in a position of privilege, right, living in New York, was I thought we were coming here and everything was going to be modern, you know what I mean? But literally, and I was going to text you about it, like sometimes the power goes out here for 2 days, you know what I mean? So it's like really understanding like where I come from. It's like a place of privilege compared to what people have here. So, but it doesn't change the love for the sport, the community, everything. So it's unbelievable.
That brings me on to the next question, which is, what are the living standards like there?
Yeah, and it's funny, right? Because it's all about perspective, right? In terms of living standards and kind of, you know, happiness and kind of what people perceive as a lot. But from what I've experienced in New York to here, there's basically nothing. You know what I mean? Like some people don't even have front doors, windows. You know what I mean? It's like a little, you know, a little hut, and there's probably 16 of them living in this, you know, 1 bedroom. You know, brothers, sisters, cousins, everything, and but it doesn't change, I guess, how the people here perceive it, right? So, like I said, there's kids here. You know, my first day walking to the pitch, nobody has boots, nobody has trainers. Some kids are walking to school in their feet. Like I said, right, I'm complaining here about if it rains, the power goes out. There's no internet. There's no, like, people. Some people here just don't have lights, period, or running water. You know, they've got to go to the river and, you know, fill the tank with river water, wash their clothes in the river. It's definitely not New York, but it's funny. People here kind of cherish things more, like they have more. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
From what you're saying, it sounds like they might have less, but they're more genuine and potentially happier than in a lot of other places where they might have more.
Exactly. And it's almost like, when I say I like, it's almost like I came in a time machine, right? It's like almost like how I grew up or you grew up kind of in the early 90s. It's like no internet, no phones, no nothing. So it's almost like it's not oblivious to the outside world. It's just like all they know is here and now, and they, there's appreciate things a bit more and kind of just living in the community instead of like these, sitting at home on your phone, doing things just there, living life. You know what I mean? Enjoying community. Like I said, the first day here I was laughing. So I've two sons, and there's a kid across the street who's seen us kind of coming in, and he's knocking on the door. Can Ryder come out and play? And I'm like, I couldn't remember the last time that's happened. Somebody knocking on the door asking to come out and play. I mean, so it's pretty special.
When you're not coaching every day of the week, what do you do for fun?
I'm getting a bit boring as I'm getting a bit older. To be honest, it's football is kind of my fun. You know what I mean? I'm coaching 7 days a week. I'm out in the field. I start at 1 o'clock. I'm done at about 8. So I've 3 or 4 different groups every day. So I start with young kids, like a team, and then I'll do a group of goalkeepers. I'll do another group. So to be honest, after that, I come home, I'm exhausted, mainly just, obviously hanging with my kids and doing things like that, going to the beach, obviously, as I mentioned, getting some sun, getting my tan. But no, most of my joy comes from being on the field and kind of fun.
Has it been difficult to integrate into society there?
It has been the most seamless process I've ever experienced in my life, and this is the beauty of football, right? I came to a country not speaking the language. I can speak a bit, but I can hold my own, but it's not perfect. When people are speaking, I still have to like look up my dictionary and kind of figure out what to say on my phone. But like I said, my second day here, I was walking past the field. Somebody asked me to play football, like a pickup game on the pitch, right? So I was playing. They could see I was decent enough. Immediately, I'm like the mayor of the town because of how the game of football brings everyone together. You obviously say it's the world's game, right? And there's no languages, there's no colors, there's no barriers. It's literally, I just came in, barely speaking the language, I had a good game. And now everybody is like my friend. You know what I mean? And that brought me, I became a part of the community just because of knowing and loving football. So literally, my wife is like, I can't bring you anywhere. Like, you're like running the town after 2 days just because I love football. And that is the beauty of it. You mentioned you were, in the Middle East and this and that. And everybody understands the game of football. You know what I mean? Regardless of language or you can speak through the game. You know what I mean? So it's literally after 1 week, I'm walking down the street and I'm going to get a coffee in the morning, and there's people coming up to me and being like, "Oh, I have a kid who's 6 years of age. Can he come train with you?" It's like, so literally within a week, I was just immersed in the community, and it's all thanks to everyone's love for this game.
Final question for you. What advice would you give to someone that is considering working or living in Colombia?
The biggest thing for me is, and not even just football, right? It's, people travel and they go to places, and it's, they're still kind of in their own ways or cultures or countries, but it's immersing yourself in the community and the culture, right? There's people who maybe are a bit apprehensive to want to learn the language or the music or meet the locals, or so. Like I said, my love for the game is kind of what made everything easy for me. So it would just be kind of like getting out of your own comfort zone and understanding the place you're living in or the community. And it's funny, I joke, right? They call me gringo, which is a term for Americans, right? And my first day I was joking. I'm fucking Colombian, like, and in Spanish, and they were like, all joking. So it's like, so I'm from Palomino, right? Or I'm living in Palomino. I'm walking on the street and they shout at me, Palominero, like I'm from Palomino. And it's because I was joking the first day that I'm from here. I've been from here, and because I just came here and I wanted to be a part of here, immersing myself in the culture, the community, everything. So obviously, everyone's different personalities. It takes time, but for sure, just immersing yourself in where the place is or what it's about, and learning the history of it and who the people are.
Thank you very much. Massive thanks to Gary for coming on and to you for tuning in. There are so many great opportunities abroad, and we at BFCN want to make the world a little smaller. We'll have many more guests coming on so we can learn about the world, and if you want to tell us where you've been coaching, we'd love to hear from you. See you next time.